Okay, so ready to dive in. We're going deep on something I think you're really going to find interesting, the future of professions. Because we've all seen how tech is like changing everything so fast these days. But then you've got, doctors, lawyers, teachers. It's always felt different, hasn't it? Like, are they immune to this tech takeover or something? What do you think?
It's funny you should put it like that because one of the things the Suskins really drive home in the future of the professions is that you can't just throw technology at these fields without really getting what they're meant to solve in the first place. It would
Totally.
be like, I don't know, using a chainsaw to cut a piece of paper.
Yeah. You wouldn't use it, like a jackhammer when a regular hammer would do. So what are we missing here when we talk about professions? What's at their core?
Well, we tend to think of these professions as modern things, but they actually go way, way back. Think about it. Hippocrates, ancient lawyers, you name it, they were fulfilling these roles, right?
Well,
The way we structure them now with all the, specific rights and all that, that really comes from the medieval guild system, believe it or not.
like those guilds you learn about in history class
Yeah.
with the blacksmiths and what was it, the weavers all banding together?
Exactly. See, those guilds, they got exclusive rights over certain skills and services. They basically had a monopoly. It's what the Susskains call the grand bargain.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
So these professions, they get this exclusivity, but in return, they had to promise trustworthy service to the public. It was a trade-off.
So they were like the keepers of this knowledge, which is maybe why they've been so slow to change. Is that what you're getting at?
Bingo. That grand bargain is key to understanding why professions have been so resistant to, well, everything changing around them. And it's only recently that we've started to see those walls come down.
And that's where things get interesting, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So what's shaking things up? What's causing those walls to crumble?
Well, there are a lot of trends reshaping the whole landscape, but at the heart of it, technology. It's changing everything.
So we're talking tech,
Mm-hmm.
but not just any tech, right?
Right?
Because the Susskind's get really specific in the book, like diving into how this is actually playing out. Medicine, law, education, even religion.
Yeah, and it's really wild to see how different the changes are depending on what field you're looking at. But they're all kind of pointing in the same direction, which I think is fascinating.
Totally.
Imagine, I don't know, robots dispensing medication perfectly. Or what about online platforms offering therapy, but no human therapists?
Wow. Yeah.
Or even churches, going fully digital.
It's like the future's being rewritten right in front of us.
Right.
But, okay, how does this all connect back to that grand bargain we were talking about, like
Yeah.
these professions holding on to knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
How is tech changing that?
They've hit on a really important point, and it's this. It's not just about, new tech doing old jobs better. It's about tech making expertise more accessible, in ways we haven't really seen before.
Right, okay.
The Susskinds, they use this phrase latent demand, and it's kind of at the heart of it all.
Latent demand,
It's
okay.
all these people who needed help, legal advice, medical treatment, you name it, but it was always too expensive, or I don't know, maybe they just couldn't access it.
Yeah.
Well, tech has the potential to change all that, to make that expert knowledge available to way more people.
So give me an example. How would this latent demand, how would that actually work in the real world?
Okay, so imagine instead of having to hire an expensive lawyer, you could get basic legal advice online, tailored to your situation, but at a fraction of the cost.
Right.
Or what about people in rural areas who could consult with specialists via telemedicine so they don't have to travel, hundreds of miles?
That makes sense.
These are just a couple of examples.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting.
But it does get you thinking, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It all sounds amazing in theory, but, I'm sure there are challenges too, right? The book doesn't just pretend there are no downsides, does it?
Oh, absolutely not. The Suskins definitely bring up some important concerns about, this whole tech revolution in the professional world. Are we losing something, they ask, with less human interaction in these fields?
Right.
What about the ethics of, say, AI making life or death decisions in healthcare?
Yeah, those aren't easy questions to answer. I mean, it's a lot to think about, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you've got this potential to make, real expertise way more affordable, right? More
Yeah.
people can benefit. But then, on the other hand, there are these big questions about what we lose in the process, like the human element. It's a tough one.
It really is. And that's the thing. The Suskins don't shy away from that at all. It's not a simple, like, tech is good or tech is bad situation.
Right.
It's so much more nuanced than that because we're talking about, like, changing how we think about expertise, how we build trust, even what it means to connect with another person, like, in these fields that have always been so human-centered.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Imagine going to your doctor and being like, nope, I want the old way, even if it's less accurate.
Right.
Hard to imagine, right? But at the same time, those questions about losing the human element, about like AI making decisions that affect our lives, we can't just ignore that.
No, absolutely not. And the Suskins are right to push on those points. Just because we can automate something, does that mean we should? What are we, sacrificing in that process? Making things faster, cheaper, is that always the most important thing? These are the trade-offs we need to be thinking about.
So let's talk about those trade-offs then. What's on the other side of that scale?
Well, the book is really emphasizing that this future, it's not about replacing humans entirely. It's about, finding that sweet spot, that balance between human expertise and what technology can do.
Okay.
Like the Suskins argue that some things, especially tasks that need, really complex judgment, understanding context, ethics, those are still best left to humans.
So it's not like doctors or lawyers are all going to disappear overnight.
Exactly. But their roles, they might change a lot, like a shifting focus. Instead of spending most of their time on, I don't know, routine tasks, things AI can probably do, they can focus their energy on the things humans excel at, where we really shine.
So maybe a doctor, instead of spending all their time diagnosing, common colds, because AI can maybe help with that, they can spend more time with patients, talking through the tough stuff.
Yeah. Or focusing on like really complex cases or doing research. They become like specialists in the human side of medicine.
Right. It's like they're not just doctors. They're something more.
Exactly. And you can see that across the professions, right? Like lawyers spending less time on paperwork and more time, I don't know, on legal strategy or really complex ethical dilemmas.
It changes the whole idea of what it means to be a professional. You're not just this, like, holder of specialized knowledge anymore.
Yeah.
You're more like a guide in a world that's overflowing with information.
Exactly. You're helping people make sense of it all. And that is a really powerful takeaway from the book. It's not about, oh, technology is bad, we have to stop it. It's about making sure tech serves us,
Yeah.
not the other way around. It's about, like you said, being aware of these shifts and then deciding, okay, what kind of future do we actually want?
And the Susskinds, they don't just leave us hanging, do they? They give us a way to think about how this might all unfold, right?
Yeah, with this idea of a fork in the road, they say there are two paths, essentially. One where expertise, that practical knowledge, stays in the hands of a few, think big tech companies.
Right.
Or we go down the other path. We create what they call a commons, where that knowledge is accessible to everyone.
So paint me a picture. What would that actually look like, this commons? And what has to happen to make it real?
Imagine like a giant digital library, constantly updated, full of reliable information, and anyone, no matter who they are, where they live, how much money they make, they can access legal advice, medical information, educational resources, you name it.
It's a cool idea. But who builds that? Who makes sure that information is accurate? And, how do you even begin to prevent people from misusing it?
Those are the million-dollar questions, and honestly, there are no easy answers. It'll take all of us working together, policymakers, people in tech, educators, even everyday people, to figure this out. But that's also what's so exciting about it. We're not just bystanders here. We have a say in how this unfolds. The choices we make today, they're going to ripple out and shape the future.
That's a pretty powerful thought to end on. A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this incredible journey into the future of professions. And to you listening, keep asking those tough questions and never stop being curious. This has been The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.